My family moved to LA when I was 5 years old. I grew up with books and newspapers and magazines in our house, but not much on our history or heritage. My dad was a college graduate of Monterrey, Nuevo León. I had the guidance of his experiences, his dignity. He tried to teach me what he knew, but it was limited, and finding materials on our history looked impossible. There seemed to be none, no history worth mentioning. Therefore, I thought there was no real history beyond Pancho Villa, Zapata, La Revolución, Benito Juárez, something vague about Aztecs and the arrival of Spaniards. All the rest was fuzzy. But everything changed when I was 16. A civil rights bill was being passed after decades of African descent people fighting for their rights. We gained from their struggle. In the late 60s, the Chicano movement was born out of the disproportionate casualties of our people in Vietnam. We were finally protected in our rights, our newly given rights of non-discrimination. Out of that awakening, we embraced the mestizo mentality with a focus on what we called our Indio heritage. We got rid of the Mexican American label and embraced Chicano, a politically aware, slightly historically aware, a mestizo-minded view that had courage to confront white supremacy. We won a few victories. Some people died in protests. Some were shot. Others arrested. And most of us who were involved in protests learned a lot about organizing. We also learned about police infiltrators and traitors. We learned that there were opportunists in our community that used protests for political purposes. I saw people who were once my heroes turned into vendidos and políticos. After a while, everything of protest was destroyed by traitors, políticos, and those who just gave up the fight. That was the end of the Chicano movement. I thought the battles were over once everyone gave up. And I thought that we would somehow continue to make progress in the American way of what our people and the Marxists called imperialism and capitalism. The Marxists blinded us to colonialism and genocide, to our history, and to Nican Tlaca identity. They fed us Che and communism instead of Zapata and Tecumseh and Tupac Amaru and Cuauhtemoc and Sitting Bull and other Nican Tlaca heroes. They blinded us from seeing that Marxists were also white supremacists. We could not see that Che was a racist against blacks in his writings, against our people, and that he thought whites were superior. The Marxists shamed us from looking into our Nican Tlaca heritage with that savages and nothing but human sacrifice lies. Those were the lies of the communists, but they were the lies of the capitalists, the lies of white supremacy. I went to college, got a degree, got a good job as a film editor, and continued studying our heritage, and continued traveling and learning. Little by little, information started to trickle in on our history in the early 80s. But also, the racism started to get ugly again. White supremacists didn't like us as their equals. But it also became popular to become a vendido. Hispanics started to become popular. Latinos started to become popular. People bragged about being vendidos. I saw little by little our people giving up again because they were not threatened like we were when we were being sent off to Vietnam, where we saw the statistics showing that we were being overkilled in Vietnam. That got us angry. That was the reason for the birth of the Chicano movement, the real reason for the birth of the Chicano movement. Then I saw how our people lost their will to fight injustice, and they went back into the passive slaves of Anglos and Spaniards, the Spaniards of Mexico, the Spaniards of Miami, los Cubanos, los Gusanos. We got back on our knees to white supremacy. I saw how the Cubans took Telemundo and Univision from us and took it to Miami to make our people more Hispanic, more Latinos, using their control of TV, radio, magazines, newspapers, all media, all Spanish language media, to make us more ignorant than we already were, to tighten the chain on our slave minds. By the time the 80s came around, I saw the need to confront racism of the Anglos and of the Criollos, the ones in Miami and the ones in Mexico City, but almost no one wanted to help unless they had been discriminated and it had happened to them personally. At the same time, there were ongoing racist police shootings, job discrimination. So I got involved stronger. I joined up with civil rights groups of African descent people and some of our people who fought injustice. I gave up film editing and joined the Hermandad Mexicana, an immigrant rights organization, as a director of public relations, and worked to lobby for the 1986 amnesty bill. I lobbied in Washington, D.C. and in Sacramento, and we were successful with the amnesty. I learned more about organizing. But Hermandad Mexicana had its problems of internal racism. So I left and later became director of communications for SEIU, a big union that organized government workers, nurses, horse track racing employees, and other jobs. I made videos for them and organized and taught people how to deal with the media. I realized from learning to organize and teaching how to organize and writing propaganda for civil rights and immigrant rights and the rights of workers, I could use all of that experience to deal with the problems of our people as indigenous people. I had not yet learned the concept of Nican Tlaca in 1992. I decided to set up what eventually became the Mexica Movement and to invite people to help in forming the beginnings of what I saw as the liberation of our people. Over the last 20 years, I have seen the fear, the cowardice of our people when it comes to facing the truth of the last 500 years, to the truth of white supremacy. I have seen protests turned into opportunists for people who want to run for political office. I have seen Chicano studies turned into Latino studies and Hispanic studies, and Mecha turned into an Hispanic organization of opportunists and vendidos. I have seen Marxists and anarchists destroy every attempt we have made to confront injustices against our people. I have seen so-called Aztec danzantes dance with crosses of Jesus and portraits of Mary and bless with copal, the American flag. And they call themselves Latinos. I have seen all the reasons why we fail, why we are betrayed, why our people are so passive, so fearful, so cowardly. All that our people can do is to make excuses. Their excuses for their cowardice is to turn everything into a big joke, or just watch TV, do drugs, become sports fanatics, or anything that will stop them from being thinkers, from being a people of honor and dignity, from being a people of knowledge and courage. This is what I have experienced People hate me for speaking this way, for pointing out our failures, but they never call me a liar.